And the issue that has been going on with these fellow YouTubers in Sorabendia for the past decade, it's not just about their imaginary beefs, imaginary drama, or something in between. But the bigger question derives is who is going to be the charismatic person, this individual who's going to at least show people he cares about this product and not just about monetary devices and stuff like that. You know, the most included sacred cow of materialism in Sorabendia. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the S3E11, and today we're going to talk about the lack of charisma and scarcity about this issue. Now I'll give you an example. So many years ago, or I think relatively a couple of years ago, when this Italian dude won at Eurovision, a lot of Serbian public was kind of polarized if they should support or hate the Italian guy who won the Eurovision. Sorry, I don't follow Eurovision. I don't give a fuck about it. It's already staged and rigged in advance. So the Italian guy who won had this plethora of something that has been missing in this particular area of Helm of Sorabendia is charisma, magnetism, vibe, approach, and the entire package behind it. And I haven't seen that type of person in so many decades or so that it feels as it's a vacuum in Sorabendia in which YouTubers have issues expressing themselves, or they're too afraid to, you know, just to be different than everybody else. But I guess in the contradictory state in Sorabendia is in which people want to be different and unique, and who is ever not trying to be different from everybody who wants to be different, but those who want to be different are judging those who are actually trying to be different or are different. And you know, the entire spectrum and the Vrzino Kola of the witches of the inner circle covenant. But the problem is that a lot of people have been saying that, and I'm also including YouTubers themselves who have been saying for a past decade or even longer. And you're going to notice that in these YouTube areas of Sorabendia, I'm not even talking about the Hog or the Minister of Culture or the son of the priest or the Benji Compson from my hometown or the Albino Man, even though Albino Man has some charisma and the way he carries himself. But I have to give him a criticism that his videos have been repetitive in the sense of editing the same way and the same things, and when that becomes the same thing over and over and over, I kind of lose interest in YouTubers because I'm expecting from them to be different every time they're posting something. Now the issue is not just or the serious topics that's covering the the Serbia's cursed history of shooting ourselves in the head for the benefit of the greater good, as usual, in this century or the past century or the century before. Now, I'm not saying that was a bad thing from any standpoint or perspective. I am saying is that we have paid so much toll for this country and wasted so many youth and the years of the youth down the drain, so we can just be to this current situation in which very few gains and very few people gain, but the collective is trying to struggle with that name in the sun. Now the problem is that this lack of diversity, and I'm not talking about multicultural bullshit, no, I'm talking about the way YouTubers, for example, I watched this clip from last night, I think it was on TikTok, in which somebody is saying that, man, it used to be interesting like 20 plus years ago when there were so many different wrestlers on Raw and SmackDown, even prior to ECW's reboot, in which at least you could see there was a ton of different wrestlers you can support and stand behind. I'm not talking about this is excluding the Evolution, I'm talking about other people at the time. And you would see that at least, man, they were trying to make a name for themselves. Now 20 some years later, the one thing that's actually pissing me off is that black guy who doesn't say anything, he's just showing the most basic expressions of the face, and he got himself over popular by just showing. And it's very easy, you know, to dissect the stupidity of the people's consciousness in the 21st century and their TikTok or Instagram videos in which they are trying to explain to people something that they can do themselves. Now the problem in Sorabendia is that when you're kind of different from the herd, the ongoing herd that's kind of going to the Provalia themselves, and they're taking everybody's worse than them from the behind, and it's the same ongoing situation with them saying, yeah, the new generation, they're more stupid, they're more retarded, they're whatnot. Be that even as it may, but even we used to say that for each generation says for the same beyond that, so it's the same ongoing circle. Now the problem is that the lack of charisma and the lack of authenticity, individualism has been very judged in Sorabendia, because, as I mentioned just a couple of moments ago, people have been claiming that they need somebody who's going to be an X factor in Sorabendia, who's going to be that martyr for the aestheticism and for the greater good and the way he approaches and carries himself, because it's not that we're lacking heroes, but I'm going to say that in this context Sorabendia is lacking an anti-hero, somebody who's going to speak differently, act differently, and talk differently from the bunch, because the herd has been saying the same thing over and over, and it's just annoying to the point where you're just trying to find something like a fresh air in which people are different and people are saying different things. But the scarcity in Sorabendia has been basically brought down to the dolphin guy pretending to be a smart guy for some institution, the Minister of Culture, the gambler, the son of the priest, albino man, serious topics, the guy who actually is kind of like a very good baby face in YouTube. I'm going to say, I'm trying to give him a unique nickname, but let's say, never mind, I won't say his name, but he is like a very good popular guy with the long hair, and he's a bit chubby, and he plays games, and his father used to be a gambler, or he is a gambler, I don't know. But the point is that besides him, besides this chubby guy I mentioned just a few seconds ago, not too many people stand out in Sorabendia. Not too many people are daring themselves to try something different, something new. It's always the same thing, and especially their thumbnails that are painting our eyes, or my eyes in this case, in context, eyes I shall not see again, in which you're trying to give a chance to new people. But the issue, it's not just experience, it's just about the way they carry themselves, and it's the same circle of the repetitive stuff they've been saying for the past decade or so. It's nothing new under the sun. And I'm not saying they should invent hot water or anything, or electricity or internet. I'm saying is that in this DNA, in the way you can carry yourself with AI, or at least they can try to help you as much as they can. And then you have to understand that in Sorabendia, the lack of authenticity is the product of the stale format of YouTube in Sorabendia, because people, they don't want to give chance to the other people because they have a different set of standards. And when they trying to give a standard to somebody else, they're like, yeah, but he's not like somebody else. He's not like XY, he's not XZ, he's not like XX, he's not like XZ, and the stuff goes on and on and on and on. But the problem is, I don't know for which reason, as I mentioned, for the past decade plus, people have been bland, stale, one-dimensional, and people have been saying the same stuff over and over, as if in Sorabendia only gamble and saying some random stuff, and you sitting at the computer and clicking that mouse over and over, and just having the same product, or just something being the same in the loop, or it's the same repetitive nature. It's because people have distanced themselves, because our YouTubers in Sorabendia are not trying that much to separate or talk about certain topics. Maybe they can talk about, I don't know, let's say Jasenovec. Maybe they can talk about, let's say, the influence of communism in Sorabendia. They can talk a shit a ton of stuff they can actually talk about, but they're kind of afraid of the public backlash, in which, in communist Sorabendia, it used to be not very popular to be against the system, because then you would get gaslighted. And you can ask any director, any writer during the 60s and 70s in Czechoslovakia, you're going to get that information from them. And back then it was like a very limited environment in which you couldn't say that much. And even if you're in the YouTube scene, imagine YouTube scene in Czechoslovakia, the entire Lovecraftian fucking ass horror ass crack fuck from it, in which people are expressing their opinions as if they were lobotomized by somebody else in the first place. Give me a second. And this censorship has been passed down to my current country of Sorabendia, the NPC country, the non-existing state of Sorabendia, in which has been the same ongoing fight between the second Serbians and the Serbs and whatnot, and has been going on back and forth and whatever the fuck not. But the problem is that due to this clash of ideologies. There are a lot of ideologies in Sorabendia, so you can be anything in Sorabendia as long as you're not successful, because success is never forgiven in Sorabendia. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, you can be pro-Kosovo independence, you can support any country or state, whatever the fuck they're doing at this current time. You can even support gambling and drug addiction and trying drugs and whatever the fuck not, but if you're successful in Sorabendia, God forbid, man, that's the greatest sin and crime to begin with in the first place. Now the problem is, with this lack of scarcity, not too many YouTubers are actually having that some charisma or some X factor in which you can actually, without eating and watching a YouTuber talk, you can actually lower down your fork and knife and look at the guy, girl, and say, man, after a fucking decade or something and a half, you're kind of seeing somebody who's actually standing for something, who's like a different fresh air included. But in Sorabendia, unfortunately, not too many people are wanting to exit from the herd mentality, and that's something Friedrich Nietzsche used to talk about, or a lot of people used to talk about, the mentality of the herd. Now, you see, the mentality of the herd has this cognitive dissonance in which the herd wants to be so different, but they also want to think everybody as everybody else behind them or in front of them or next to them. So this creates this clash of ideologies, this clash of spirit, of philosophy and mentality, the dual state, the everything in between and whatever not. The problem is that when you have herd mentality in Sorabendia, which have been going on for the past, I'm going to say 50 plus years, but I'm going to say 45. Currently going 46. I'm taking 4th of May of 1980, the greatest Serbian holiday in fucking history. And ever since that, the herd mentality has been passed by generations after generations after generations, in which playing Zicher, playing safe and not upsetting the establishment has been the main topic, in which the production itself, when it comes to the TV shows, movies, YouTubes and products, it has gone fresh. I'm going to say that for almost like a decade, close to a decade. But people unfortunately have been clinging to these past shows from the 90s, in which those shows are kind of remnants of the past, and they should be remnants of the past, because we shouldn't just go back in time and be nostalgic, because nostalgia is a hell of a fucking drug. And the issue with authenticity is that you have to give chance to new people and the newer generations. As much as you hate it, as much as you're feeling as an uncle or aunt, whatever the fuck you're feeling, the point is that this new generation has something to offer. Hence, I believe the students, when they rose against the corruption in the government, have been the fresh air in which they have been presenting themselves and showing you that the issue within this state can be solved with unity. But currently, as I'm making this video on the February 27th, which is Friday, you have to understand that even to this day, even after the 1st of November 2024, and people have been trying to fight against the corruption, but there are too many loyalists who have been trying to keep the most loved thing about politicians and YouTubers is the similarity and the parallel in which they prefer status quo as long as it benefits them. When it no longer benefits them, they're going to go on some open tangent and they're going to say for themselves they have been wronged by the system. And especially I hate about this certain singer cunt who I used to listen like even just a few months ago, and until she said that we should find ourselves in the middle and not go to any extreme. Now after she had said that, no, I really and severely got disappointed, because she presents herself, or has been presenting herself for the past decade, as a lady without a hair on her tongue and saying outlandish things and very provocative and controversial. But in this day and age, if you're saying that we should find some status quo in the middle amidst all of the bullshit faggotry that has been going on in Sorabendia, and you saying to the people, gee golly gee guys, I think we should find the middle and not going for any extreme, meaning that even our estrada or production has been serving the Dark Lord for many years, and a lot of them are afraid to speak their own mind because they are afraid of getting cancelled. They're afraid of being judged, and they're afraid of being polarizing. But that's actually what I love in the first place. I love polarizing shit, man. I just love rage baiting the fuck out of people because I want to see their reaction. Because if there is any reaction, at least there is a reaction. If you see they are just brain dead morons and NPC people just roaming around the street and saying some shenanigan faggot ass things that have nothing to do in the first place with the reality we live in, now there is something wrong with them, or they've decided to pretend they're dead or pretend to be blind, because the issue in Sorabendia and the authenticity is the collectiveness of people willing to be blind for the status quo and just going out in coffee shops, taking pictures of a prepared food who was prepared by somebody else, and you're taking the credit for it, which is not fair in the first place. Because, hear me out, imagine if you go to somebody's house or apartment and they prepare the food for you and you put it on your social media and you say it's your own deed and it's your own work. The individual who prepared the food for you is going to get severely insulted, but when taking the credit of the chef from the restaurant or coffee bar, pizza bar, whatever the fuck, if they take if they take the credit, hey man, nothing happened, let's move on. Now, the issue with taking credits when the credit isn't due for you has been going on in Sorabendia with a lot of stuff. Now, what I'm trying to say in this video is that with authenticity there has to be like a freedom and a free flow of energy before we want to have like a Gavrilo Princip or Stefan Dushan or whatever individuals we used to dreamt of, or if we are imagining Marko Kraljevic. There has to be like a healthy environment in which in Sorabendia you can actually produce one and just have freedom and just to express yourself in the freedom of speech, because the freedom of speech in shithole of Sorabendia is very selective. You can say what you want as long as you're not offending everybody, but the thing is everybody is offended by anything and everybody and anyone and everyone. So it's a really like a eggshell country in which you have to say what you have to say, because a lot of people are going to get flamed or upset or triggered, whatever the fuck they're going to get upset. And they're going to go to give you to this insults of physical predisposition, and they're going to say, hey, you're not successful, you're not rich like me. When you become rich and famous as me, you can talk shit. But the problem is with those rich ass noble cocksuckers is that freedom of speech is a very walking existing entity. So it doesn't exist because you have money or you're sitting in some fancy ass faggot ass restaurants in Belgrade or Novi Sad and you're pretending to be free. You're only free because of the materialism, because everybody knows at the bottom of their corrupted Slavic Sorabian hearts, they know that they wouldn't say shit about the current state affairs that are going on in Sorabendia, because you are free with the money, so you can roam around like a circus rat in whatever fucking restaurant you want to go. But when it comes to expressing your opinion and telling people what is going on in this country of Sorabendia, where people are fighting the Dark Lord, then you're going to see the sound of the crickets, the sound of the mice, and the sound of the grass, and the sound of the doves, and the sound of the pigeons, and the sound of the snakes, and the sound of the cars, and the sound of the kids, and the sound of the dogs, and the sound of the cats, and the thing goes on and on and on and on. The point is that the authenticity has been very limited, and because of the culture is very limited and education in Sorabendia, from the kids to the senior citizens on the retired who are 2 feet with their graves, they have been wasted opportunities in youth and in middle age and adulthood to actually be different and give the expression of their own mind. But the problem is, due to this system in which status quo and just having the same thing over and over is actually a good thing, but it's a death for the collective spirit. Because the collective spirit dies, then nothing will remain. Not even all that legacy that we fought in all the world wars and Balkan wars and uprisings and fighting against the Ottoman Empire from back then to until now. If they kill our spirit, if they kill our identity, then my friend, all that Serbian legacy will be just like right click and delete all, and there is nothing you can actually do. So it actually have some balls to be different. And if you're actually running on this video and you think it's my first one, as I mentioned at the beginning of it, it's S3E11, in which I previously expressed my attitudes in previous seasons 1 and 2. You can actually check for yourself. Blade Runner 2147, Mr. Stefan Heller the cat. Thank you very much for coming to the channel, and remember, if you have no cojones, there is no Victoria, which is the same thing I've been saying for Partizan Belgrade in basketball and football. No cojones, no victoria. So if you find yourself confused by the end of this video after working out in a gym or listening in a coffee shop, the very sounding cloudy going on coffee shop or whatever the fuck you are, just remember the point of this video is that if there is no authenticity or freedom of speech of expression, this country is not free and the people themselves are not free. They're just pretending to be free because they have money. And yes, with money you can be free, but as you know, those rich cocksuckers in the first booth of Second Serbia or Krug Dvojke, they are so rich, but they are so far up somebody's ass crack that you don't know if they are free, they have money, or they're so into anal they only love to be in somebody else and pretending to be somebody else. That's the bigger question than saying if Kosovo was sold or not. Dude, fuck Kosovo. We've got bigger things to worry about, and those guys in Koralova and Kergohia, they can figure out themselves. I'm sure they survive worse than being separated from us, and I have to say, ever since 18 years ago when they separated from us, it has been the biggest blessing for them, because they no longer have to listen to the false patriotism and nationalism, because in these 18 years, if we are not from there, we haven't done jack shit to them to help them in the first place. We have been only screaming like autistic people that something is our heart, but that heart has been belonging to somebody else's chest, has been sold, and unfortunately it will stay like that way, because Serbs, besides judging people for being successful, they also hate being united. So 2 + 2 is 4, and Serbs being divided since 1355, trending, hashtagging has been going on since 1355. When the fuck will we unite as country, the Sorabendia, and going from the regular ox on the highway and becoming a Serbian? Not even Jesus Christ knows. Believe in Christ. Christ is king. Become straight edge. Fuck the government. Oh, and fuck Predrag Mijatovic. And fuck Austria. Thank you so much. Have a great day and a weekend. And remember, memento mori.